Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Happy Saturday to all of you, whether you're watching live or watching a replay. It's lovely to have you here. And hopefully, all will go seamlessly today. All right. And I want to apologize for last Saturday. I had a bit of an emergency and I had to cut off early. Some of you didn't know why I disappeared. And I apologize for that. So today I will be carrying on discussing the major arcana of the Mythologia Fennica, the Greenwood Tarot, and Margaret Peterson. And today I'm going to be looking at the green man, the green woman, and the Lover's card. And I think this is really interesting considering the reading that I'm going to do before that. So I will be doing a reading for the full moon in Gemini that is coming up next week. And I want to just sit and reflect on the energy of that moon and how we might bring balance and harmony to that. Welcome, Mary Beth. Nice to see you. And I have an announcement. So I am very happy to, and I don't know if I'm biting off more than I can chew, but I am going to do Advent Calendar 2025. This has been a lot of fun the past few years where I have broadcast early morning, excuse me. I've broadcast early morning for 24 days in a row. And I've decided that I'm going to do it this year as well. And yes, happy Thanksgiving to our American friends. And yeah, so that's sort of the plan. Now this year for my Advent calendar, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I will be starting with a daily inspiration, and that won't change. So there'll be a short card reading reflection for the day. And I will continue to share a daily tarot tip. And then I'm going to share with you, I did create a long list, I think about 100 of them, but I'm going to pick 24 of them and share with you 24 things to do with your tarot deck besides do a reading. And I'm going to be using some of my decks that are missing a card and a few other things. So I will be doing some playful things, some crafty things, and I just thought that would be fun. I was going to do a video on it, but it was just too much to do it all in one video. So one a day I can certainly manage. 24 things to do with a tarot deck besides do a reading. So that is going to begin Monday morning and go on for 24 days. And I don't know on the weekends. So during the weekdays, I will be broadcasting at 6 a.m. Pacific, 6 a.m. Vancouver, San Francisco time. And on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, do I do the same time or can I come on a little bit later? I'll have to see about that. But anyway, that's upcoming. So welcome to all of you. This upcoming full moon, I am not doing readings today. Socio Awakening, I'm doing a reading for the collective. So perhaps you can get some help in this reading for the collective because we are in a rather intense energy at this time. And I think we can all benefit from just a little bit of reflection on what this energy that we are moving into. So the moon is growing. We have a full moon next week, and that is on Thursday, depending on where you are on the globe. And if you are Pacific time, and you're going to have to adjust for where you are in the world, the full moon will be at 3:14 p.m. So that is just after noon Eastern and early morning, I guess, in the UK. And this full moon, I have some cards on the table just reflecting on the decans of this upcoming full moon. We are in Sagittarius season. I'll see if I can get this to focus a bit better here. And we are we're looking at and comparing cards of Sag II and Gemini II. Sagittarius in the tarot is, sorry for the lack of focus here. And the deck that I have on the table is the one of the Saki decks. I am the Artist Tarot. Let me zoom in a little bit and see if that helps. I will be sure to name cards and so forth if that is, if I can't get it to focus. Sagittarius in the tarot focuses on this particular major arcana of temperance. And this is a rather large card to understand, a large archetype to understand. It is one of tremendous healing, where we have an opportunity in the understanding of this card to find a greater sense of wellness and I truly believe it is our individual responsibility to take some action in this regard when this card comes up in a reading. And these days, when I am doing readings, I find so much support in a decan reflection before I actually do a reading. And this is a really intense energy on during this full moon. With this second decan of Sagittarius, we're looking at the Nine of Wands. And the Nine of Wands can be very an exhausting energy. We also have it because it is conjunct the moon. We have also a 9 in Gemini. And both of these 9s are, in the tarot, you would consider them to be masculine. They are supportive, or they are friendly of one another. So they kind of egg each other on. They I guess they help each other get going, so to speak, this 9 of Wands and 8 of Wands. You know, I'm wondering if there is a thumbprint on my camera, and I'm just going to take a second to have a look at that. I'm going to just sort of chat while I see if I can fix that for you. Because it's really weird how it's not focusing at all. Technology, you gotta love it. Hi Dee, welcome to you, and welcome to Donna. And I just find that to have a reading where these two decans are presenting, these two cards are presenting together, it is really difficult. This is not an easy time. So, my question for the reading today is going to be about in staying in the mood of temperance and the importance of temperance, and the card for the lunar energy. How can we find and honor the goddess within to support these highly active cards that are appearing at this time? So the lunar decan is Knight of Wands and 9 of the solar decan is Knight of Wands and 9. And the lunar decan is 9 of Swords, Knight of Swords. And this is in Gemini. So we're also looking at a dance between the Lovers and Temperance. And I know a lot of you have studied tarot for years, and you've looked at these two cards kind of carefully, Lovers and Temperance. And this is the energy of the full moon next week. So I want to be aware of my gently, I'm going to use that word, gently, softly, finding harmony in the day before, during, and following the full moon. It feels as if the universe is, there's some pressure here to find balance, harmony, health. And it feels like it's taking it, how can I say this? I feel like it's one of those moods where you just want to fix it. You just want to fix it instead of sort of gently finding your way in there. And it kind of hurts, you know. Instead of a healing elixir, it feels like surgery, that kind of thing. It feels almost violent. So when I pull the cards, I want to when I pull the cards, I want to look for a way to kind of soften into this. And Mary Beth, thank you so much for having a conversation with Socio Awakening. I appreciate it. I pulled out this deck because I thought with the creative, fiery energy of Sagittarius, this is such a great deck to work with. But in reflecting on what's happening next week, I want something softer. I still want the energy of transformation, but I don't want something that feels so, and I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but I want to take a little bit of a gentler approach. And so very quickly went over to my cabinet and I chose this deck. So this one is one of Kelly Burton's decks. This is her latest one. This is The Flight of the Butterfly, and it's the one I'm going to read with today. So I don't know if that helps any of you in understanding the energy of this upcoming full moon, and if there's anything that kind of connects for you there. It feels slightly uncomfortable to me, and I know that each of us are always in the process of healing. Finding balance, finding harmony. And yet there seems to be some sort of an urgency. And then I was also reflecting on on Venus and Mars, sort of on either side of that. So both Venus and Mars are in Sag. And when I mean on either side, first and third decans during this full moon. And it just feels really intense. And with having Venus and Mars there, and these cards of Lovers and Temperance being so important tarot-wise in terms of the full moon, I just want to really sort of step back and have a bigger look at what is going on. Now, this is really funny because, you know, last week I had to go off and I couldn't have my chat, and the cards that sort of the place where I am at in our discussion of these three decks is about this harmony of Empress, Emperor, and Lovers. And these are the cards that I had decided last week that I was going to discuss. So I think there is a greater reason why I needed to wait a week to talk about these cards. And I just sort of laugh and sigh, and I go like, yeah, I don't know about the tarot. It's just kind of this mysterious world that has become such an important part of my own growth and healing. So, this reading is for the collective on the 29th day of November, 2025, reflecting on how we might move through this very active energy of the full moon in Gemini to soften the energy a little bit so that we can understand and act more harmoniously on our individual wellness at this time. And as always, I ask this message be in the highest for the greatest good, and that no harm be done. Yes, it does, Dee. It most certainly does. So, let me shuffle one more. And then I'm just going to do a single cut and build a reading depending on what shows up here. Quite a thick stack of cards. Okay, so the Sag card is the first one, making an appearance center stage. That blue is absolutely stunning. So let's think about the number 9. And think about the number 9 in terms of the full moon. And the number 9, one of the words that I love, and maybe this comes through studying the Herb Crafter Tarot, is ripeness. Number 9 is certainly a fullness. And maybe we can use this 9 of Wands energy as a time to journal and reflect on all of the wonderful things that we have accomplished this year, the wonderful twists and turns that our life has taken. Maybe our path has taken a new direction. When I'm working with the Suit of Wands, I'm always kind of doing a check on, okay, how does my path at this time, whether I'm reflecting on career or what's going on with motherhood and family, how does this intersect with my greater life purpose? You know, I'm really struck by the blue color here. And you can see this is a lunar decan. I think that's really also important to mention here. And I love how Kelly Burton really taps into these Golden Dawn correspondences and brings them into a lot of her illustrations as well. Okay. King of Swords. Chariot. It's kind of like a magical, mystical ride in the chariot. Chariot being the card for Cancer. Also a powerful connection to the moon. These blue colors feel significant, highly significant. And perhaps this is a point, we don't need to make this overcomplicated. I can pull out a couple more cards as well too. We don't ever need to complicate what a really simple message could be in the tarot. But what I'm thinking here with the Chariot and the Nine of Wands, the Chariot's also kind of at a tipping point in being the last card in the first septenary of the major arcana. And often we see, this one doesn't appear to be static, but we often see the Charioteer and the Chariot static in a place of reflection before we head off on this path and this next step of our journey. And this could very well be a time to reflect on 2025 itself. We often, I go into 2026, I go into the new year and I start and do these year ahead readings and thinking about what's ahead. But how often do we stop and really think about, be grateful for, honor all that we have wandered through in the present year? And maybe that is what this is asking us to do. I want to go back to these Decan cards that I pulled out and also think about these knights and what it is that these knights are doing. It feels like they're serving us quite importantly. Clearing the next step of the path, perhaps. And it's so nice, when we come to the end of the year, that if things were a little cozy and comfortable, but I feel as if what's going on here is a message of, we're not quite done. There is something that is very close ahead that is unfolding for us. And this reflection, if you're reflecting on 2025 and you want to go back and you want to think about Cancer season and what was happening for you in the early part of the summer, you might find some connection there as well too. The King of Swords asks us, to consider our truth, our voice, our word. Maybe there was a lack of precision in terms of a word or a voice for this year. And I'm intrigued how this King of Swords is quite fiercely pointing towards the Nine of Wands. And the Chariot also, not fiercely, but more lovingly, is heading in the direction of this Nine of Wands. If I add those three cards together and give the King of Swords the value of 14, 14 and 9 is 23 and 7 is 30, which reduces to a 3 if you're going to do it that way. And so here we have this energy of Empress, of growth, of creativity, of building. So how can you weave that in? How can you weave that in to thank you for that, Donna. How can you weave that into a lover's temperance kind of message? Perhaps it's simply preparation. I mean, if I had upcoming surgery or there was something that was happening in my life that felt like there was a decision to be made, I would say that this is a message indeed to go ahead with that. And let's go ahead carefully and quietly. Donna mentioned that, just a couple of comments here. 2025 is a 9 year. Interesting that so many 9s showed up today. So what does that mean? Does that mean that this final full moon of 2025 is one that's saying, let's not forget that this is a year of ripeness. And if you haven't acted on something that you had intended to act upon in 2025, this full moon is illuminating that quite loudly and saying, yes, let's pay attention to that. Oh my God, I just noticed that. I finally figured out the Golden Dawn Cancer Chariot connection other than the obvious 7th card, 7th month. There's something else in the illustration here that I'm noticing. This charioteer appears to be going through the air, and the court card that is on the other side is the King of Air. The moon is in Gemini. So it feels as if it is cutting through, finding a path through perhaps the confusion of the mind. And yet we do not have a water card here. I mean, yes, this is a water card because it is Cancer. We have an air and a fire card here. Maybe this is showing up also to harmonize and balance all of that, saying that let's take this path a little more receptively. Let's continue on this path, follow through with what we've been doing, but really embrace our watery energy, the goddess energy. Cancer is ruled by the moon. The card in that case is the High Priestess. So how would the High Priestess go forward on this path? We have another card of conclusion and interesting. So this is 10 of Pentacles, Virgo, Knight of Cups, another Knight. So I like that. The 4th and 5th cards are receptive energies, balancing. You know, maybe this message isn't entirely clear. Mercury is, shall we say, turning around. Mercury retrograde ends today, and there is a bit of a lull before Mercury begins to, it's not like it goes back and it goes forward, but this perception of Mercury retrograde is shifting, and there is a bit of a lull while that happens. And so this reflection is kind of important here. And also with Knight of Cups, there is a connection here to endings in that this is the final court card of the astrological year. So it is connected to the sign of Pisces. And I know that the 2025 doesn't end in the sign of Pisces. That comes a couple of months later. But I'm just saying there's a mood of beginnings and endings, taking count, reflecting, having a good look at where you've been throughout this year. I think 9 of Wands is a really important card right now. Just to sit with. And you know, another deck that I thought about bringing out today was Anatorian's Tarot of Echoes, and she does something really kind of bizarre in this card. She has a whole bunch of people in the card. And most tarot decks, if it's not a Pip deck or a Tarot de Marseille, has only one person. This is a personal reflection. And I think too about this place in and on. Oh, there's another really great connection here. So 9 in general is the Sephira of Yesod, which is the moon. And this is a lunar decan in the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius itself has a really important place on the tree of life, down at the bottom in the shape of the arrow of the archer. And it shoots that arrow straight up the tree of life and through the sun towards the path of the high priestess. And that really makes sense with this particular card showing up here, the chariot being ruled by the high priestess. So there's something here about a trajectory, staying on path, and how we stay on path feels really important. Don't get distracted. Don't let the busyness of the season distract you from some important work that you have been doing, some important self-study and self-reflection. Let's all take some time to find space for that each and every day as we move through this final month of 2025. And maybe, maybe that's why today I sat down and I decided to commit to Advent Calendar 2025. It is a daily, it's a place to sit down and share with you and do a daily reflection. And in a very busy time. For me, at a time of day that is a time where I would be busily getting ready for work, but making a commitment to sit down and do this with you. So how can each of you find space for that in the busyness of this upcoming season? All right. So back to our cards of study. Mythologia Fennica has some interesting stuff going on with Emperor and Empress. And we have the Empress card is Luhi, and Vainamoinen is the Emperor. And this is the Lover's card in this deck. And I think it's a really interesting study to look at Emperor, Empress, and Lovers in one breath. There are some decks that do a really good job of illustrating the connection of Emperor, Empress in the Lover's card. In the Greenwood Tarot, and I know some of you must have received yours by now, I did see, maybe some people got an early preview deck. We have Green Woman, Green Man, and then we have the Beltane card, which is the Lovers. And this powerful symbol of connection between. And whether you've been working with this deck or working with the Wildwood Tarot, very similar iconography, and I don't know how often you think about the Emperor and the Empress in terms of the Lover's card. I want to begin with this one, and this is a very dark card in Mythologia Fennica. The figure of Luhi, or Lohi, the Empress, is the goddess, I suppose, of the underworld. And the stories, the mythology around this energy all feel very dark and sinister. And Susanna Salo goes on to sort of bring that full circle, but most of the text about this card is quite dark. And then I stop and I think, well, the energy of the goddess is black. it is dark. That's what the black and the white and the blue and the red symbolize. The goddess is the yin to the yang. It is the black half of the yin-yang symbol. And why? Why does it take on so many sinister aspects? And I find that I have to remind myself that this has happened through time in many places in the world where not just the mythology, the history, the patriarchy dominated and made the feminine energy evil. And I don't know how much of that is true in Finnish culture, if there was a period of that. And I've told you that I love to play cards, and it doesn't really matter what we're playing. I'm always looking at the playing cards fondly, depending on what hand, whatever people's hands are. And I'm sort of doing a reading, and it's kind of weird playing cards with Sadhana because I'm always looking at something other than the cards themselves. And I think about the Queen of Swords and the bad rap that she gets, and how some people respond to the queens in general. And it just, I don't know. I'm starting to see all of this in a very, very different way. And so I'm going to read a little bit from Susanna Salo for you. Louhi was the mistress of the cold and dark Pohjola, which could be compared to Manala, the underworld of Finnish folklore. Pohjola was the birthplace of all diseases and ailments that plagued mankind, and the mistress of Pohjola was the one who gave birth to them. She is also responsible for freeze, gale, and cold winds and all dangerous woodland creatures, except the bear. It was said that she had 3 sons, ugly, lame, and blind, who would cast upon people the torments birthed by their mother. Louhi also had daughters who were famous for their beauty, and whose affections all the heroes of Kalevala tried to win for themselves. The central mountain of the world, Pohjola's great stone hill, was the place where Louhi locked up the moon and the sun and the Sampo, and it was also the place where diseases were banished when someone was when someone was cured using a spell. Louhi commanded all of the great armed forces of Pohjola, and she led them herself during the raid of Sampo and the pursuit of Lemminkainen after he had killed the master of Pohjola at the feast of Paivola. So, there's lots of intertwined stories here. This is a card of an extremely strong feminine energy, capable of commanding armies. Certainly an empress that stands on her own. And I think it's really interesting to look at these cards. A lot of you spent a year studying the oh my goodness, the major arcana, minor arcana of the Tarot de Marseille with me. And I know in looking at those cards, one of the things that comes forward for me is always looking at the energy of the balancing of the masculine and the feminine, the roles of the Empress and the Emperor, and how do they work together, or are they indeed separate archetypes? And everything that I've studied, everything that I've learned and worked through my personal journey says to me, no, this is one great big mandala, often of misunderstanding. And so I offer this today to have a look at how we can view the Empress and the Emperor in terms of our journey and understanding of the Lover's card. Whether the Lover's card shows up in relationship or it shows up in perhaps a fairly early stage in defining the power of our masculinity, the power of our femininity and the softness of our masculinity. Finding harmony and understanding how we can shine better in our dark and our light. There is, for me, in a way, a softness in this emperor. He is old. He is old and not sought after by any of the maids in the mythology. And it feels like he is an advisor and perhaps would be would bring a softness to the energy of this particular Empress. Vainamoinen is one of the most important characters in Finnish mythology. He was a sage and a healer who was an old skillful man from the moment of his birth, kind of coming into this lifetime, kind of coming into life as a wise one, knowing his path, knowing their path. It is said in a tale about his birth that he was born at night, and come daylight he went into the smithy and forged himself a stallion made of iron and a saddle made of horns. Then he mounted his steed, galloped to the sea, and the horse's hooves didn't get wet, for he was riding above the waters. Vainamoinen was so ancient that he was almost as old as the world. The essential elements of the world already existed when he was born, but he had an active role in the creation of human culture. Vainamoinen had plenty of inner strength and iron will, which aided him to succeed in almost anything he set his mind to. Oh, and there's this really interesting line here. So the last line of the first paragraph, it talks about he traveled to Tuonela and raised Antara Vipunanen, the ancient sage, from the dead, and could, for example, also transform into a pike and a snake when crossing the river of Pohjola and escaping from Tuonela. So he had the ability to enter into the world of the Empress and transform his energy. And so in a way, in both of these cards, there is a power to be the other. It's not possible to separate the Empress from the Emperor because they exist within each other. And I think that is what I am really feeling here. Anna Torian never talks about the esoteric nature of her decks. And yet what she did in this latest deck that she created was she drew Shiva within Shakti and Shakti within Shiva. And when I finally saw this, it was, I don't know, like, you know how a lot of tarot creators, they say they don't write expansive guidebooks because they want you to find your way with the deck, to make it your own, to draw the conclusions yourself. They're not here to tell you how to read the tarot. And I think that something here just made me have a completely different view of Anatolian and her decks when I saw these two cards. And for me, this comes through yogic associations that Shiva, the divine masculine energy, is the universal consciousness, the unmanifest, whereas Shakti, the divine feminine, is all that is manifest. And when I saw Shiva within the energy of the earth and the land, and Shakti within the universe, I just had a whole new respect for Anna and her work. And I have no idea whether that was intentional or not, or how she sees that, but that's certainly how I see that. And then in the Lover's card in this deck, not only does this reflection go left and right, it also goes as above, so below. And it just feels that this is even more, I don't know. It's really deep and it's really powerful. And I know that a lot of people with tarot readings keep things really light and they're looking for very practical answers. And I think it's just important to remember that every single tarot reading can be read at a number of levels, and it just depends where you're at and what it is that you are seeking. And there are metaphors within metaphors that are available to help you in understanding why certain things are going on in your life at this time. And this is such an interesting group of cards. And thank you for these comments, Dee and Donna. Dee says, I find the Queen of Coins feels more tragic than the Queen of Swords. The Empress understands death perfectly. And it's interesting as well, too, that if we look at this is really something, there's so much similarity between the Empress card in Margaret Peterson and the Empress card in the Green Woman in the Green Wood deck. And you can think of the Empress as this path, right? She is the birth canal. She is the one who brings forth life. She is this space between life and death, birth and life. The holder of the magical portal. And the Shilana-gig is an important part of this iconography. And the dragon, it's really, I don't know if you've sat with this card, but the way the dragon looks on to that image feels really significant here. Margaret Peterson does not describe this as female body parts in her poem. I don't even think there is a subtle hint to that metaphor, but it just seems so obvious to me. Okay, so the Empress. Mountains, this is Margaret Peterson. Mountains surround you, where grasses and trees grow. Emptiness and fullness, to occupy a space naked and open, entering a new space, organic reality, a body that understands and speaks many languages. Devotion and creativity are born in the center of the heart, nurturing, nourishing source of being. And I think you could take that on so many levels. The path of the Empress on the Tree of Life is a very important place on the Tree of Life. I know that none of these decks are intended as Golden Dawn decks, but that archetype connects the two pillars, the left and the right pillar, the pillar of severity and the pillar of mercy. And I know they go by lots of different names. The Empress connects those at the top, right? Crossing the High Priestess path, connects those two pillars. She is the path between, and that layer of Empressness, I think, is really important not to forget when we're looking at that. If you want to think about the Tree of Life, these three cards create a very important triangle at the top of the Tree of Life. The Empress connects the left and the right pillar, and the Emperor comes down from the second Sephira, I believe, to the Sun, and then the Lovers comes from the third Sephira down to the Sun. So these three cards create something mighty and powerful. And if you think of the triangle, or you want to turn the Tree of Life upside down, the base of that triangle is the Empress. And so there's something quite mighty, foundational, fundamental in this archetype, and a indisputable connection among these three cards. And then look at what we've got here in Margaret Peterson. You can see the black, the red. We have the snake connecting here. I think this card, in terms of also the strength card in her deck, are important cards to study together. And this is 6. So Margaret's poem for the Lovers is Soul, nakedly looking into the mirror. Soul, nakedly looking into the mirror. Twilight, doubt, duality. Double vision, thinking, listening, confusion. The release of identities. The shedding of old skin. Meeting of non-I. A blossom opening. Inner forces becoming fluid, soft, supple. Fresh, vibrating energy moving up the spine. Gently meeting. Beyond all opposites. You and I are becoming one. And these cards, so there's this other piece of understanding these cards that is so interesting. So if you look at the Tree of Life, I should be able to grab one here, reach for one on my table. These paths of these cards are very high up on the Tree of Life. So this is what I'm talking about. This is the path of the Empress, and this is the Lovers, and this is the Emperor. And it's like this triangle supports Keter in a way. And all I'm seeing here is that there's this kind of beautiful high frequency energy in reflecting on these cards. And so when they appear in a reading, I want to remember this place that they are. And then when we are looking at the individual Sephira, the queens and the kings sit on opposite sides of the path of the Empress. She is the connective tissue between the queens and the kings, between the second and the third Sephira. And so there's something very, there's some awe-ness to this particular archetype. And I find it, I don't want to say too much because it can get really confusing. If the energy of Shakti, the divine feminine, is all that is manifest, and Shiva is unmanifest, that is one way to perceive this. But I think we can also see that the emperor creates and holds the energy and the space for the greatness of Shakti to be all that she is. Stand by, I was, that song, Stand By Your Man. Well, it feels like that the emperor's, one of the great responsibilities of the emperor is to stand by the feminine energy, to be the rock for the fluidity of the feminine energy. When I look at Margaret Peterson's Emperor, and I contrast it with the feminine, it is so martial, it is so red, it is so fiery. And there's just this vast difference between these two particular cards. And then in the Lovers, she finds gold. She finds the alchemy, the gold of the connection between these two, which also is reflected here in this healing symbol, right? The rod of healing, the rod of Asclepius. And I just want to go to I just want to see how Mark Ryan describes that rod, how that is named in this particular card. This is from the Lover's description in the Greenwood Tarot Guidebook. A hand-fasted foliate man and woman stand side by side, creating a polaric interchange that generates a maypole, here symbolized as a living birch tree. Spiraling around the birch tree are green garlands reaching toward the sky and representing the ascending earth energies red, meeting the descending air-sky energies white. The three encircling ring garlands represent the past, present, future, and the energies of two harmonic poles, creating the spark of life that generates a third force or energy. So this indeed is the triangle that creates, that says there is the possibility of creating something through this connection, that 3 is greater than 2, and that 3 exists for this purpose. Arum lilies, commonly called lords and ladies, are in flower during Beltane. They symbolize the male and female union at this time of year and the generative energies creating fruitfulness and harmony within the cycle. The Lovers represent both the balance in relationships and the sexual union between two polaric individuals. This encompasses the love of all nature, both human and ecological. We are all holographic fractions of the universe. I love that. We are all holographic fractions of the universe. Each contains the total and the archetypes of the major arcana. Each contains the total and the archetypes of the major arcana live within each of us to a greater or lesser degree. True love comes from coming together of two whole polaric energies to create a third force or consciousness. It is an interchange of energy and passion, not the surrender or domination of either, but a voluntary exchange of willpower and respect. And I think that I just saw some other the word poltergeist is about 6 lines down from there. But what this also, I think another thing important to say is that this relationship that we as humans have with the earth upon which we trespass is given such great importance in the Wildwood and Greenwood tarots, and that our evolution, our growth, our individual experience as a human is also part of this story of learning this dance of harmony with the land and the earth itself, and in extension our relationship with the god and the goddess. In the book, The Chalice and the Blade, the author posits that man's hatred, disparagement of women was because women could create life like God, and that frightened them. Thank you. So, just more food for thought, and perhaps some ways to, when you're working with a deck that is full of mythology and mythological connections that may not be familiar, it's through discussions like this that we perhaps can find greater ease in working with a deck like that. And it takes time. This is not beginner work. It takes years to unravel all of this, and I feel like I will be studying tarot for my lifetimes. In studying the tarot, we are studying so much more, and I really am grateful to all of you for your contributions over the years and the rabbit holes that we have gone down together and taken each other down. It's kind of brilliant. So thank you. I will see some of you on Monday. And if you came in late, just a reminder that I will be broadcasting daily, December 1st to December 24th, and sharing a daily reflection and some tarot tips. Okay. Thank you. Have a lovely rest of your weekend. Namaste.